Snow was falling hard in a small Colorado town when a little girl walked back into the home she once lost, 3 years older, and carrying a goodbye she couldn't say out loud. She didn't cry, she didn't explain. But the golden retriever at the door froze, then slowly sat the exact way she taught him when she was 4, like he'd been waiting for that one scent, that one soul, the whole time. And then the storm outside turned vicious fast. Because some warnings don't come in words, they come in a dog's eyes, in a child's shaking hands, in the kind of love that understands pain before it's spoken. If you believe stories like this still matter, you're already part of this little community, so join us on the road to 1,000 subscribers. It helps these stories find the people who need them most. Snow drifted past the airport glass, blurring the runway lights and muting the world beyond the terminal. Sunny had learned Mia like a heartbeat. He was a 5-year-old golden retriever with honey gold fur that never stayed neat, always a little dusty from yard snow and little hands. His brown eyes were steady and gentle, the kind that made strangers relax. He knew Mia's footsteps, her giggle, the way she whispered secrets into his ear when adults sounded sharp. When she cried as a baby, Sunny used to nose the nursery door until someone opened it. It became his job to make sure she breathed, slept, and smiled. Ryan Callahan was 32, broad-shouldered, with a square jaw and permanent stubble that made him look tougher than he felt. He worked county maintenance fixing burst pipes, dead streetlights, frozen locks, quiet work that kept a town alive. Ryan spoke softly to everyone except himself. He'd grown up around men who treated emotions like a flaw, and he was still learning how to hold grief without turning it into anger. Mia was 4, small and bright-eyed, with thick brown hair that Natalie tied into 2 pigtails most mornings. A tiny gap between her front teeth appeared when she smiled. Lately, she smiled less, like she could sense the ground shifting under her. When the house went tense, she would sit on the rug, press her forehead to Sunny's, and breathe until the world felt normal again. Natalie Callahan was 30, slender and restless, with straight blonde hair brushing her shoulders and a pale face that showed every sleepless night. She loved loudly big hugs, big plans, big hopes, and lately those hopes had been squeezing her. Money was tight. The town felt too small. Ryan's long shifts left her feeling alone even when he was home. They tried counseling. They tried promises. Mostly they tried not to fight in front of Mia. The divorce didn't explode. It leaked into everything. Sunny sensed it before the word was spoken. He started sleeping closer to Mia's bed. He stood in doorways like a soft question. Are we safe? Then Natalie got a job in Denver. Better pay, a new start, a friend offering a spare room. Ryan read the offer and felt his future split in half. He didn't beg. He didn't threaten. He just nodded, once, and went outside to shovel the driveway until his hands went numb. The hardest part was Sunny. Natalie's new lease didn't allow dogs. The easiest choice on paper became the cruelest one in real life. Sunny would stay with Ryan. Natalie told Mia, Sunny will be happy with Daddy, like it was a blessing. Mia heard it as a goodbye. Now they were at the airport, and the terminal smelled like coffee, winter coats, and jet fuel. Ryan watched Natalie's hands on the suitcase handle and remembered the first winter they'd met. Her laugh in a diner, cheeks flushed from cold, talking about life beyond their town. He had loved that hunger in her, and without realizing, promised he could satisfy it. Standing here, he felt the old shame of being a man who could repair anything except a marriage. Natalie kept her posture straight, but her gaze kept flicking to Mia and Sunny, like she was measuring how much damage one goodbye could do. Ryan saw guilt there, bright as frost, and it scared him more than anger ever had. He wanted to hate her for leaving, but the thing he could feel was fear for Mia, fear for Sunny, and fear that silence would become the new language of their family. Suitcases clicked across the polished floor. Holiday ads flashed on screens. A calm voice announced boarding groups like nothing in the world could break. Ryan held Sunny's leash in one hand and Mia's mittened hand in the other. His grip was too tight on both, like pressure could prevent loss. Natalie pushed a suitcase, chin lifted, a dark wool coat wrapped close. Mia's yellow sweater peeked from under her coat, a small sun against the gray day. She kept looking back at Sunny, checking that he was still there. Sunny stayed close to her knee, tail low, ears tilted toward every change in her breathing. At security, the line curled between metal rails. A TSA agent waved people forward, shoes off, laptops out. Natalie crouched to Mia's height, smoothing her sleeve with fingers that trembled. "Okay, sweetheart," Natalie said, trying to sound excited. "New place, new room, a park." "And Sunny?" Mia cut in, voice cracking. Natalie's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked to Ryan. "Don't make this harder," the look said. Ryan swallowed and nodded because his voice felt dangerous. Mia dropped Natalie's hand and wrapped her arms around Sunny's neck. She buried her face in his fur, breathing him in like she was saving his scent for later. Sunny stood still, solemn, then licked her cheek once, slow and gentle. "I'll come back," Mia whispered. "Don't forget me, please." Sunny didn't know the words, but he knew the tremble. His tail thumped twice, steady, like a promise he couldn't name. Ryan crouched beside them, one knee popping. He stroked Sunny's head, then Mia's hair. He wanted to say 100 things about weekends, visits, calls, how love doesn't end at a city line, but airports stole sentences. All he managed was, "I love you, kiddo." And it sounded too small. Natalie stood, blinking fast. "We have to go." Mia clung a second longer, then let Natalie peel her arms away. A thin sound escaped Mia's throat, more breath than cry. Ryan felt it like a bruise. Sunny stepped forward, nose pressed to Mia's coat, frantic for her scent. His ears pinned back. A whine rose in his chest. "Easy, boy," Ryan murmured, tightening the leash. "Easy." Mia was guided toward the scanner. The gap between her and Sunny widened like ice cracking. Mia twisted around, reaching one mittened hand back. "Sunny!" Something inside Sunny clicked into certainty. He planted his paws. The leash went taut. Ryan's palm burned. Sunny surged forward. "Sunny, no!" Ryan lunged, but the leash slid through his fingers in one ugly moment. Sunny bolted toward security, weaving between legs, nails skittering on tile. A TSA agent stepped in, startled. Sunny dodged low and fast, eyes locked on the yellow sweater. "Sir, control your dog," someone shouted. Ryan ran, shoulder bumping a suitcase hard enough to wobble. "He's friendly. Sunny, stop." Mia's face appeared between adults in line, eyes huge and wet. She lifted her hand, palm open, like she could command time to rewind. Natalie grabbed her and pulled her through the scanner, head down, moving fast. Sonny reached the threshold and hesitated for one breath. He glanced toward Ryan, a flicker of question in his eyes, as if asking permission to break every rule. Ryan opened his mouth too late. Sonny darted forward into the choke point, swallowed by uniforms, bodies, and the narrowing gate. Ryan shoved up to the rail, breath ragged, scanning for honey gold fur. People surged. A guard moved to intercept. The line advanced, indifferent. The doors shifted, then closed, and Sonny was simply gone. Ryan ran until his lungs burned. He reached the security rail and stared at the moving crowd beyond the scanner. "My dog," he gasped. "Golden retriever he just went through." A TSA officer raised a hand. "Sir, you can't cross. Step back." "I'm not trying to get on a plane," Ryan said, voice raw. "He's my kid's dog. He's scared." A woman in a navy blazer approached, radio clipped to her shoulder. Her name tag read, Claire Bennett. Claire looked mid-40s, tall and lean, dark hair twisted into a tight bun. She spoke with the steady calm of someone who didn't let emergencies borrow her fear. "Tell me exactly what happened," Claire said. Ryan forced air into his chest and spoke in fragments. Mia's yellow sweater, the leash slipping, Sonny's eyes. Claire nodded once. "You stay on this side. I'll send officers into the sterile area and notify K9. If he's inside, we'll locate him." Minutes dragged. Claire's radio crackled. Ryan paced until his legs shook. He called Sonny's name toward the closed doors, as if the dog could hear through metal and policy. Natalie texted, "We're boarding soon. Is Sonny with you?" Ryan typed back, "No." He ran. "I'm looking." He didn't add more. Anything else would turn into a fight. Claire returned, jaw set. "We didn't find him near the gates," she said, "but there are staff corridors and service doors. We're checking exits, baggage level, and the perimeter." Hope surged and hurt at the same time. Ryan nodded too fast. He moved between counters with a photo of Sonny on his phone, repeating the same description, honey gold coat, friendly, answers to Sonny, until the words felt thin. Employees offered sympathy, then returned to their routines. The airport kept swallowing minutes like it didn't care what it was taking. Near midnight, Claire met him by arrivals. Snow swirled outside the glass. "I'm sorry," she said, quieter now. "Airport ops and animal control are alerted. If he's found, they'll call you. You need to go home." Leaving felt like betrayal, but Ryan's body was failing him, hands trembling, stomach hot and empty. He signed the report anyway. Under distinguishing features, he wrote, "Gentle brown eyes, paws always dirty, follows a little girl." On the drive back, headlights carved narrow tunnels through falling snow. Ryan's mind fed him images he couldn't stop. Sonny trapped behind a door. Sonny sprinting until he couldn't. Sonny lying down somewhere cold because he'd finally run out of choices. At home, the silence hit first. The house was too big without Mia's small noises. Her toys were already packed into plastic bins by the door. One dog bowl sat on the mat, half full, as if Ryan had forgotten to accept the new math of his life. He left the porch light on. He set a blanket by the threshold. Then he sat on the floor with Sonny's frayed tennis ball in his hands and tried to breathe without breaking. Sometime after 3, a scrape pulled him from half sleep, claws on the porch steps, then a soft, exhausted whine. Ryan lurched to the door and yanked it open. Sonny stood there soaked and clumped with gray slush. Mud coated his legs. His paws left dark prints on the mat. His chest rose and fell too fast, breath puffing in short bursts. His eyes searched Ryan's face, then slid past him into the house, as if looking for the smaller person who should have been there. Ryan noticed one ear tipped sideways with exhaustion, and a strip of tape clung to Sonny's collar proof he'd been caught, checked, and somehow slipped away. Relief hit Ryan first, sharp enough to sting. Then anger followed, hot and irrational, because Sonny had scared him, because Sonny had run, because love could still make a mess of everything. Ryan dropped to his knees anyway and gripped Sonny's wet neck. "Where were you?" he whispered. Sonny leaned into him, trembling, and pressed his head against Ryan's shoulder like he was trying to crawl back into the place where everything used to be safe. "She's gone," Ryan said, and the words cracked. "Mia's gone." At the name, Sonny's ears twitched. He lifted his head and stared at the hallway, then at the front door again, certain the next sound would be her shoes. Ryan pulled the dog close until his own breathing slowed to match Sonny's. "It's just us," he murmured. "Okay? Just us now." Sonny didn't understand the sentence, but he understood the grief inside it. He padded to the doorway, sat, and stared into the porch light's pale circle, waiting with the patient, devastating faith of a dog who believed love always came back. Snow fell all morning, muffling the neighborhood into white silence. Ryan Callahan kept the house too tidy for a man who lived alone. It wasn't pride. It was control. When everything else had split marriage, weekends, phone calls, he could still line up Mia's crayons in a shoebox. At 35, he wore a trimmed beard over a square jaw and a crease between his brows that hadn't been there 3 winters ago. Sonny waited by the front window, 8 years old now. His honey gold fur had darkened with age, and pale hairs dusted his muzzle. He was still sturdy, but he rose slower, careful with his hips on cold days. Ryan didn't mind the dirt on Sonny's paws. It proved the dog still wanted the world. At noon, Natalie called. Ryan stared at her name before answering, like he had to remind his heart to behave. "We landed," Natalie said, brisk and tired. "She's quiet. Don't push." "I won't," Ryan said. "Gate B3, 20 minutes. Click." Ryan clipped Sonny's leash. The dog's tail gave a single thump, then went still, ears pricking toward the door as if he'd heard a word no one spoke. Ryan parked, left Sonny in the truck with the heater running, and walked inside with his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. His palms were sweating anyway. At baggage claim, he scanned faces until he saw a pink knit hat and a little rolling suitcase. Mia was 7, now longer legs, slimmer cheeks, eyes that seemed older than her age. Brown hair was braided beneath the hat, and her yellow scarf was wrapped tight under her chin. She moved with practiced politeness, like she'd learned to be small in crowded places. Natalie walked beside her, a navy coat belted cleanly, blonde hair tucked behind her ears. She kept her mouth set, the way she did when she refused to cry in public. Ryan took a step. "Mia." Mia stopped. Her eyes traveled over him, beard, boots, the familiar breadth of his shoulders, and something in her face cracked just for a second. Then she ran, suitcase handle slipping from her mittened grip. Ryan knelt and caught her. She collided with him like she'd been holding herself upright for years. Her arms locked around his neck. Ryan closed his eyes and breathed her in. Shampoo, winter air, and the faint plastic scent of airplane seats that made his throat tighten. "Hi, kiddo," he whispered. Mia's voice came out muffled against his coat. "You're real." Behind them, Natalie cleared her throat. "Her bag's got her things," she said, brisk on purpose. "And she's been asking about Sonny." Ryan nodded, without looking away from Mia. "He's outside." Mia's head snapped up. "Now?" "Now," Ryan promised. Outside, wind slapped their cheeks. Mia's hands slid into Ryan's, small and cold. "Is he mad at me?" she asked. The question hit Ryan like a shove. "No," he said, steadying his voice. "He doesn't do mad, he does waiting." At the truck, Sonny was already standing when Ryan opened the rear door. He didn't bark, he didn't jump. He inhaled one deep, trembling breath, then went utterly still, as if the world had narrowed to a single scent. Mia froze. For a heartbeat, she looked afraid he wouldn't know her, afraid she'd imagined the bond. Sonny stepped down carefully. Snow creaked under his paws. He walked straight to Mia and sat, posture tall, head slightly tilted, the exact sit Mia used to demand when she was 4 and proud. Mia dropped to her knees. Her mittened hands disappeared into Sonny's dirty ruff. "You remember," she sobbed, and the sound was raw, not polite at all. Sonny leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers. His tail thumped the snow in slow, sure beats. Then he licked her cheek once, gentle as a vow. 3 years of phone calls and empty weekends, and this was the first moment that felt whole. A few steps away, Natalie stood with her arms crossed against the cold. Her eyes were wet. She blinked hard and looked away. Mia lifted her face, cheeks red, and whispered to Sonny, "I'm here." Sonny's tail thumped harder, and he looked up at Ryan, asking without words if here was safe. Ryan squeezed Mia's hand. "You're here," he said, "and you're staying with me for winter break." On the ride home, Mia sat in the back seat beside Sonny, one mitten resting on his warm shoulder. Sonny kept his head high at first, watching every turn, then slowly relaxed and leaned into her touch. Mia whispered, "I tried to remember all of you." Sonny sighed, content, as if he'd been saving that breath for her. Snow kept drifting past the windows, soft as ash, turning the streetlights into glowing halos. Ryan tried to build normal on purpose. He brought home a small Christmas tree from the lot outside the grocery store, nothing fancy, just a lopsided pine that smelled sharp and honest. He set it in the corner by the living room window where Mia used to sit with crayons. He hung lights with careful hands, like each bulb was a fragile promise. At 35, his shoulders seemed heavier than the winter coat on them. His beard was neat, but the tiredness in his eyes wasn't something he could trim away. Mia watched from the couch with Sonny pressed against her legs. She smiled when Ryan made the tree wobble and cursed under his breath, but her smile didn't stay long. 7-year-olds were supposed to be loud about Christmas. Mia was quiet about everything, as if she was afraid noise would remind the world she existed and make it take her away again. Sonny, 8 years old now, lay with his head on Mia's shin. His muzzle carried a faint silver dusting. He breathed slow, steady, the way he had when Mia was a baby, and nightmares could be chased off by warmth. His coat was slightly dirty from the yard and the snow, and Mia didn't seem to mind. Her mittened fingers combed through the tangles like she was grounding herself. "You used to put the star on top," Ryan said gently. Mia looked up. "I was little." "Still are," Ryan said, and he meant it as comfort, not correction. Mia slid off the couch, held the star with both hands, and stood on tiptoe while Ryan steadied her waist. For a second, she leaned into him like a child who still belonged in one home. Then she pulled back fast, like she remembered she had two versions of herself now: Colorado Mia and Denver Mia. Ryan pretended not to notice. He stepped away and clapped once. Perfect. Mia's eyes flicked toward the hallway. "Mom's not mad, right?" Ryan's throat tightened. "Your mom isn't mad at you. She's busy." Mia nodded, but her face didn't relax. She had learned to translate adult words into hidden meanings. Busy could mean leaving. Busy could mean forgetting. That evening, Ryan made hot chocolate the way Mia liked it: extra marshmallows, a pinch of cinnamon. They sat on the floor by the tree. A holiday movie played, but Mia kept glancing at Ryan's phone on the coffee table, like it might suddenly announce a rule change. Sonny noticed. He rose, walked to the phone, and sat beside it, blocking Mia's view with his body. It was a simple act, but it said, "Stay here. Be here." Mia let out a small breath and leaned against Sonny's side. "He's still warm," she whispered, as if warmth was something that could disappear too. Ryan stroked Sonny's head. "He's stubborn," Ryan said quietly. "He doesn't give up on people." The words were meant for Mia, but they landed in Ryan's own chest. He wondered if he'd given up too easily back then, in the months when Natalie's eyes stopped meeting his. He wondered if trying harder would have fixed anything, or just delayed the break. Outside, wind scraped over the roof. The town was asleep early, buried under winter. Near midnight, Mia dozed off with her cheek on Sonny's shoulder. 2 weeks, winter break. 2 weeks of mornings and pancakes and snow angels. 2 weeks isn't nothing. The phone rang anyway. Ryan's hand hovered a beat too long before he answered, as if part of him already knew what the call would be. Natalie's name glowed on the screen like a warning. He stepped into the kitchen, lowering his voice. "Hello?" Natalie's voice sounded strained tight, like she was holding herself together by force. "Ryan, I need to talk." His stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Work." A pause. "They're changing my schedule. A project got moved up." Ryan stared at the sink, at the dish he'd left soaking like a normal person. "Okay. I might have to come get Mia earlier than we planned," Natalie said, and the words slid into the room like ice. Ryan closed his eyes. "How much earlier?" "I don't know yet," Natalie admitted, and that uncertainty was worse than a date. "But it could be soon. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this on Christmas, but I can't." "You can," Ryan cut in softly. He didn't mean it as an attack. He meant it as a truth that hurt. "You can always move the schedule. You always have the power to." Natalie inhaled sharply. "Don't do that." Ryan swallowed the anger he didn't want Mia to inherit. "Mia's asleep," he said. "I'm not waking her to tell her she's losing time again." Silence on the line. Then Natalie's voice dropped, quieter. "She's been anxious. She asks if you're okay. She asks if Sonny misses her." Ryan's hand tightened around the phone. He does. She does too. Natalie's breath hitched. I didn't plan to hurt her. Ryan stared at the dark window above the sink. Snow kept falling, endless and indifferent. No one plans it, he said. It still happens. I'll call tomorrow with details, Natalie said, voice small now. Okay, Ryan answered. He ended the call and stood in the kitchen until the heater clicked and the silence grew heavy. When he walked back into the living room, the lights on the tree blinked softly, cheerful and clueless. Mia slept with her hand tangled in Sonny's fur. Sonny's eyes were open, watching Ryan the moment he entered. The dog read his posture the way he used to read a crying baby through a door. Ryan sank to the floor beside them. He pressed his fingers into Sonny's ruff and felt the slow, steady breathing. He wanted to protect Mia from the adult world, from schedule changes and sharp phone calls. He wanted to freeze time like the snow froze the ground, but time didn't stop. Ryan whispered, barely audible, "Don't let her feel alone again." Sonny's tail tapped once, soft, firm like a promise he intended to keep. The storm arrived like a slammed door wind first, then snow so thick the world became a blank page. By morning, the weather alerts were screaming across Ryan's phone. Schools closed, roads iced over, flights delayed. The airport an hour away became a glowing dot on the map that might as well have been another country. Ryan kept glancing at it anyway, because Natalie's call from the night before still sat in his chest like a stone. Sonny paced more than usual. At 8, he didn't waste energy unless something felt wrong. He stood at the front window, muzzle silvered with age, breathing fog onto the glass. Every few minutes, he would look back at Mia, as if counting her. Mia sat on the living room rug in her pajama pants and thick socks, turning her mother's last text over and over in her head. Ryan had heard her ask 3 times already, "Do you think Mom is stuck at the airport?" Each time, he answered gently, "She's fine." But Mia didn't hear reassurance the way adults did. She heard possibility. By noon, a pickup truck skidded to a stop in front of Ryan's house. Pete Lawson climbed out, hunched into the wind. Pete was early 40s, broad and red-cheeked, with a scruffy beard that always seemed dusted with sawdust or snow. He was the kind of neighbor who never smiled much, but who would show up with a shovel before you even asked. "Ryan," Pete shouted over the wind. "Mrs. Harper's car slid into the ditch by Maple. She's stuck. I tried getting her out, but I'm spinning." Ryan grabbed his coat. "I'll be right there." Mia popped up. "Dad, don't go." Ryan crouched to her level. "I'll be quick. Stay inside. Keep the door locked. If you need me, you call." Mia's eyes darted to the window, to the white blur outside. "What if Mom—" Ryan touched her cheek, gentle. "Your mom is an adult. You're a kid. You stay safe." Sonny pushed his head under Ryan's hand, insisting on being included. Ryan clipped on his leash, then paused. He couldn't take Sonny. The wind was vicious, and Sonny wasn't young anymore. "Buddy, you stay," Ryan murmured, unclipping the leash again and pointing toward Mia. "Guard." Sonny sat, steady as a soldier, eyes locked on Mia. Ryan ran into the storm. The air was knives. Snow stung his face, crawled into his lashes, filled his collar. He reached Maple Street, where Pete's truck sat at an angle. June Harper's small sedan was half buried in the ditch, hazards blinking weak red through the whiteout. June stood outside with her parka hood up, silver curls escaping, cheeks raw from cold. She was tough, but her hands shook. "I'm fine," she insisted when Ryan reached her. "Just embarrassed." "Save your pride," Ryan said, already hooking a toe strap. "We'll laugh later." Pete gunned his engine. The strap tightened. Ryan signaled with his arms, wind ripping his gloves. On the second pull, June's tires caught and the sedan lurched free. June exhaled hard. "Bless you, Ryan." Ryan nodded, breath tearing his chest. "Drive straight home. No stops." As he turned back, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Natalie. The storm swallowed the ring. He missed it. Panic flickered. He started running. At home, the front porch light glowed dimly through the snow. Ryan shoved the door open and called, "Mia?" Silence. His stomach dropped so hard he tasted metal. "Mia!" he shouted again, scanning the living room. Her blanket was on the couch. Her little boots were missing from the mat. Sonny's water bowl had been knocked sideways, a trail of wet paw prints leading toward the door. Ryan's heart began to hammer. He stumbled into the hallway. Mia's coat was gone. The wind howled outside like something alive. He ran into the storm without thinking. "Mia!" he shouted, voice ripped away. He sprinted down the driveway, slipping once, catching himself on the mailbox. "Mia!" The snow erased everything: footprints, fences, street signs. The neighborhood had turned into a maze of white walls. Then he heard it. A bark, raw, urgent, not playful. Sonny's bark. Ryan pivoted, following the sound like a lifeline. He stumbled past the hedge, past the neighbor's shed, down toward the shallow drainage cut that ran behind the houses. The wind funneled there, deeper and meaner. Another bark. Hoarse, desperate. "Sonny!" Ryan screamed. He found them in the ditch. Mia was curled in a hollow beside the drainage cut, her tiny body hunched, face pressed into Sonny's neck. Her cheeks were wet tears and melting snow. Her lips were blue, trembling. Her phone lay in the snow beside her, screen dark. Sonny's body was draped over her like a blanket. His fur was stiff with ice, dirtied with slush. His chest rose and fell too fast, and his bark came out broken, scratched raw by the wind. But his eyes were locked on Ryan with a single message. "Here." Ryan dropped to his knees, hands shaking, as he pulled Mia into his arms. "Mia, why?" She tried to speak, teeth chattering. I wanted to call Mom. I thought." She was stuck. Ryan's throat closed. He wrapped his coat around her, pressing her face against his chest. Sonny tried to stand. His legs buckled. "Sonny," Ryan whispered, reaching for him. Sonny's body sagged into the snow, not dramatic, just spent. His eyelids fluttered. His breath hitched, then came shallow. The storm kept roaring, indifferent. Ryan gathered Sonny's head against his forearm, lifting him with shaking strength. Sonny's fur was cold. Too cold. "Stay with me," Ryan pleaded, voice cracking. "Buddy, please, not now." Mia clung to Ryan's sleeve with numb fingers. "Is he—" Her voice broke. "Is he going to die?" Ryan couldn't answer. He just held them both, his daughter and the dog who had saved her, and ran toward the porch light, like it was the only star left in the world. Morning light spread thin and gray across the snow, turning the world into a quiet, waiting place. Ryan hadn't slept. Not really. He'd sat in a plastic chair beside a metal exam table, his coat still damp from the storm, his hands still shaking from carrying 2 lives at once. Mia lay curled under a hospital blanket in a corner of the small veterinary clinic's waiting room, cheeks flushed now with warmth instead of wind. Every few minutes, she woke with a startled gasp and asked the same question in a whisper. "Is Sonny okay?" Ryan would answer, "He's fighting," and force his voice not to break. Dr. Evelyn Park moved like someone who had learned how to be calm in other people's panic. She was in her late 30s, petite, with straight black hair pulled into a low ponytail, and dark, focused eyes that didn't miss details. Her voice was gentle, but efficient, the way it had to be when seconds mattered. She wore soft scrubs under a fleece jacket, and her hands smelled faintly of antiseptic. "He's hypothermic," she told Ryan, removing her gloves. "Not frostbite level, but he's cold all the way through. His age makes recovery slower." Ryan nodded, jaw clenched. "Just tell me what to do." "You already did it," Dr. Park said. "You got him here. Now we warm him gradually and watch his heart." Mia pushed herself upright, hair tangled, eyes swollen from crying. "Can I see him?" Dr. Park crouched to Mia's height. "For a minute," she said softly. "But you have to be very gentle, okay? He needs quiet." Mia nodded so hard her hat slipped down her forehead. When the door to the treatment room opened, the smell hit first clean, sharp, clinical. Sonny lay on a padded mat with heated blankets tucked around him. An IV line ran into his leg. His fur was still damp in places, clumped and messy from melted snow. His muzzle looked whiter than it had yesterday. And for one terrifying moment, Ryan couldn't tell if it was age or exhaustion. Mia froze in the doorway. Sonny's eyes were closed, his breathing slow. He looked smaller like that, no longer the sturdy guardian who had filled doorways. Mia's voice came out thin. "Sonny?" Ryan held her shoulders. "Easy," he whispered, as if loud words could scare a soul back out of a body. Mia stepped closer and knelt. Her mitten hovered over Sonny's paw like she was afraid touch could hurt him. Then she rested her fingers lightly on his fur. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to." Sonny's ear twitched. It was tiny, almost nothing. But Mia saw it like a miracle. She leaned closer, voice trembling. "Sonny, it's me, Mia. I'm here." Sonny's eyelids fluttered. His eyes opened a sliver, unfocused at first. Then, as if the sound of her name pulled a thread tight inside him, his gaze found her face. His tail didn't wag. Not yet. He was too tired for that. But the tip of it tapped once, weak and stubborn, against the mat. Mia pressed her forehead to his and sobbed silently, careful not to shake him. Ryan's throat tightened so hard he had to turn his face away. Dr. Park watched from the doorway, then nodded once. "That's good," she said quietly. "That's really good." The phone call came an hour later. Natalie's voice was broken in a way Ryan had rarely heard. "Ryan, oh my God, Mia, are you—" "She's safe," Ryan said. He didn't soften the truth. "She almost wasn't." Natalie inhaled sharply. "I'm on my way. I'm driving. I don't care about the roads." "Be careful," Ryan said, and surprised himself by meaning it. "She needs you alive." When Natalie arrived, she looked like she'd driven through the storm with her teeth clenched the whole way. Her blonde hair was frizzed from a wet hood. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed red. She moved fast, scanning for Mia like a mother animal. Mia ran into her arms, and Natalie dropped to her knees on the clinic floor. Hugging her so tightly, Mia squeaked. "I'm sorry," Natalie kept repeating into her hair. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Ryan stood a few steps away, hands shoved into his pockets to stop them from shaking again. He watched Natalie's shoulders quake and felt something in him shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Natalie wasn't the villain. She was a human being who had made choices and didn't get to choose the consequences. Mia pulled back and looked up at her mother. "Sonny saved me," she said, voice fierce. "He got hurt because of me." Natalie's eyes widened. She looked toward the treatment room door like she was afraid to see the truth. "Can I?" Ryan nodded. "You can." Inside, Natalie stood beside the mat and covered her mouth with her hand. Sonny's eyes were closed again, but his breathing was steadier. Natalie's gaze dropped to the IV line, to his messy fur, to the old whiteness on his muzzle. "He's old," she whispered, as if saying it out loud made it cruel. Ryan's voice stayed low. "He's loyal." Natalie swallowed hard. "I didn't think," she said, and for once there was no defensiveness. "I didn't think about what it does to her when everything keeps changing." Ryan felt anger rise sharp, familiar, but Mia's small hand slipped into his, grounding him. "I don't want to feel like a suitcase," Mia said suddenly, looking at both of them. "I don't want to get picked up early and dropped off late. I want to know. I want to know the plan." The words were too grown for 7 years old, the kind of sentence a child says when she's been carrying adult anxiety like a backpack. Natalie's face crumpled. "Sweetheart," Mia kept going, voice shaking but brave. "And I want Sonny. When I come here, I want Sonny. And when I'm with Mom, I want to see him. I don't want people to decide like I'm not here." Ryan crouched. His beard brushed Mia's hat as he kissed her forehead. "You're here," he whispered. "We see you." Natalie wiped her cheeks. "Okay," she said, voice hoarse. "Okay, we do this right." They didn't solve it in the clinic, not fully. But they started it there, in front of the dog, who had almost paid for their mistakes with his life. 2 days later, when the roads cleared and Sonny was stable enough to go home, Ryan and Natalie sat in a small mediation office over a diner, because that's what their town had, law and coffee in the same building. The mediator was Thomas Reed, a man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and wire-frame glasses. His suit didn't quite fit his broad shoulders, and his tie was slightly crooked, like he'd put it on in a rush. His voice was steady, not warm, but fair someone who had seen families break and wanted, quietly, to help them bend instead. "We're here to adjust your parenting plan," Thomas said, sliding papers forward. "Clear dates, clear responsibilities, emergency procedures, no surprises." Natalie nodded, eyes down. Ryan nodded, jaw tight. They talked about winter breaks, flights, who paid for what happened if a flight got canceled. They wrote it down in ink so Mia didn't have to carry it in fear. Then Mia, sitting in the corner with a coloring book, asked without looking up, "Can Sonny be in the plan?" Thomas blinked. "In the plan?" Ryan glanced at Natalie. For a second, old arguments hovered like ghosts. Then Natalie exhaled and said, "Yes." They added it. Not as a legal owner transfer, Sonny stayed with Ryan, but as a promise with real shape. Scheduled video calls where Sunny would be on camera, extended summer visit weeks in Colorado so Mia had time with him. And if Mia was ever back in town, Sunny was included like family, not an afterthought. That night, back home, Sunny lay on his bed near the heater, still thinner than before, still tired. Mia sat beside him and held his paw in both hands. "I thought I lost my whole childhood," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Like it went away with the airplane." Sunny lifted his head with effort and nudged her wrist, warm and solid. Mia smiled through tears. "You still know me." Sunny's tail tapped once, stronger than before. Ryan watched from the doorway. Natalie stood beside him, silent. In the soft light, they looked less like enemies and more like two adults finally learning what their daughter had needed all along. Not perfect love, just reliable love. Outside, winter remained winter. But inside, the house held a new kind of warmth, the kind you build with decisions instead of wishes. Sometimes a miracle doesn't arrive with thunder or bright light. Sometimes it comes quietly on 4 tired paws in a loyal heart that refuses to let a child disappear into the storm. That night it felt like God didn't send an angel with wings. He sent one with a warm coat and a steady breath, something real enough to hold, close enough to save. And maybe that's how grace shows up in everyday life too. In a neighbor who stops to help, in a parent who finally listens, in a second chance that asks us to choose love on purpose. If this story touched you, let it be a reminder. The people and animals you love are not later. They're now. Say the kind word. Make the call. Forgive when you can. Hold on a little longer. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Comment below where you're watching from and what you believe miracles look like in real life. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep spreading stories that heal hearts. May God bless you, protect your family, and watch over every soul walking through winter right now. Amen.